Good evening, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World News Tonight, live from Warsaw. Donald Trump's special envoy for Ukraine and Russia is not coming to Europe in early January. Keith Kellogg has altered his plans and no new date for the trip has been set. More on that in a moment, but first, let's take a look at the latest headlines. Transnistria accuses Moldova and Moldova accuses Russia of provoking energy crisis in the separatist region. Poland to face foreign interference in presidential elections due to take place in May. And Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth royal regalia have been discovered in the Vilnius cathedral. Ukrainian forces fighting in the Kursk region of Russia staved off nearly 100 Russian ground assaults over the past day, according to the Ukrainian military, as a renewed Ukrainian offensive enters its third day. And joining us now live from Kyiv with the latest is our Ukraine correspondent Oskar Terzi. Good evening, Oz. So what more can you tell us about the situation developing on the front lines?
Good evening. Well, we have heard from the Ukrainian General Staff about the situation in the Kursk region and across the front lines. And President Zelensky, he said that 15,000 Russian soldiers have been killed in the Kursk oblast so far against Ukrainian forces. They also said that they fought off 94 attempts over the past 24 hours from Russians to try and break through to Ukrainian positions unsuccessfully. So it's quite a busy area in the front line in that section in the Kursk region, with the General Staff also reporting to have hit a command post in the Kursk region. And we don't have much in the way of territorial advances to report, but we do have the Ukrainians denying a Russian territorial advance. They're denying that the Russians have captured the outskirts of Krakow. According to the Ukrainian General Staff, fighting is still ongoing in that section. Now, we do have some other information coming through about Ukraine. Most notably is that Keith Kellogg, Donald Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, has postponed his visit to Kyiv. He was expected to visit Kyiv imminently, but that has been postponed till at least after the inauguration of Donald Trump. But for more on that, let's turn over to Marek Steele now.
The U.S. president-elect promised to end the war in Ukraine immediately after taking office.
We got to stop it. It's carnage.
But as his Ukraine envoy, Keith Kellogg, postponed a planned visit to Kyiv, questions mount whether the efforts to reach peace in Ukraine have also been postponed.
President Trump is sending a lot of signals, and it's a disruptive policy of President Trump. I believe that he's increasing the tension than to find a way to give a way for everybody in this process.
Keith Kellogg was scheduled to visit Kyiv for a fact-finding trip before Trump would be sworn in as president, signaling that the matter is of key importance to the new administration. But this is not going to happen. Instead, the visit will take place after the January 20th inauguration.
For us, this meeting and General Kellogg's visits are extremely important, and I am sure that this meeting will take place in due time.
Ukraine doesn't want any peace at any price. Ukraine wants this peace to be long-lasting, stable, and fair, just peace for Ukraine. Not just any peace, not just simple ceasefire, but long-term peace with US security guarantees.
Trump's impending return to the White House has sparked concerns that American support for Kyiv could diminish. The Republican has insisted that the only way to end a nearly 3-year conflict is by brokering a peace deal between Kyiv and Moscow. In spite of this, the Ukrainians remain hopeful of the new administration.
Like all other soldiers, I have a lot of hope in our allies, including the United States, because they can exert huge influence, political pressure on our enemy, Russia.
A peace deal would likely include territorial concessions. Currently, Moscow controls around 20% of Ukraine's territory. The question now is whether the Ukrainians are ready to agree to losing territory, or rather, if they are in a position not to agree to a US brokered deal.
The Ukrainians need to lead realistic discussions on territorial issues, and only they can do that. And the Europeans need to build security guarantees that will be their primary responsibility.
There is no Ukrainian politician representing democratic forces that is ready to make any concessions. But I can imagine that ruling president of Ukraine could make a referendum and give a chance to give a voice to the society of Ukraine.
Both Ukrainians and Russians have been fighting fiercely to improve their battlefield positions before Donald Trump takes office. The positions they hold now could become permanent.
Russia is weaponizing gas deliveries as the cold season unfolds. One of the countries impacted the most is Moldova, with the separatist region of Transnistria taking the biggest hit. Sonja Agata Bišćan has more.
Over 51,000 households in Moldova's pro-Russian separatist region Transnistria were left without gas, electricity and heating amid a worsening energy crisis.
Last night we had a bit of a hard time because it was very cold and the walls were damp. It was okay as my child was wrapped up, but they are forecasting freezing cold now. I'm going to my friend's place. They still have electricity up until 8 p.m., so we will hang out together.
Transnistria, located along the Ukrainian border, had relied on Russian gas via Ukraine for decades. The cessation of gas supply to Moldova coincided with the end of the transit agreement between Russia and Ukraine. The situation has left the region with limited alternatives.
As they say, they have a call for about 10 days more, or maybe 2 weeks more.
But Russian state-owned Gazprom has never cited the Ukraine transit deal as a reason for halting the gas deliveries to Moldova. Technically, Russia could still send gas to Moldova via the Trans-Balkan gas pipeline through Turkey, Bulgaria and Romania. Instead, Gazprom halted gas deliveries to Moldova, citing a €680 million debt for gas. Chisinau disputed this, claiming its actual debt was approximately €8 million instead, and it found the development to be politically motivated.
The meaning of all of this is for Russia to create instability in the region, but also very importantly to influence the results of the parliamentary elections in Moldova due to take place this autumn.
The Moldovan government has offered energy and humanitarian assistance to Transnistria, but it has not yet been accepted.
And we encourage Tiraspol to cooperate with Chisinau to address the situation also in the interest of the local population.
Both Chisinau and European Union can help Transnistria, and they would like to do it, but it would cost some kind of reunification of Moldova and Transnistria. And that is something that they don't want it. Tiraspol don't want it. So you cannot help somebody who don't want your help.
Compared to Transnistria, Moldova has been less impacted by gas supply disruptions. After Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, the country took steps to reduce its dependence on Russian gas by diversifying its energy sources.
So Moldova right now is getting most of the gas from Romania. It's getting a lot of electricity from Romania. Our Minister of Energy a couple of days ago already announced that we stand ready to provide the fullest of their needs. So Moldova is in a good condition so far.
Nonetheless, the situation across its territory prompted Moldova to declare a 60-day state of emergency in the energy sector from December 16, 2024.
The exact date of the Polish presidential election will be announced on January 15th, said the Parliament Speaker and one of the presidential candidates himself, Szymon Hołownia. While Poland is getting ready for the vote, which will take place in May, fears are growing over potential election meddling from Russia and American billionaire Elon Musk. Kazimierz Łysiak has this report.
Poland is getting ready for a presidential election, which will either give all the power to the ruling center-liberal coalition or leave it with a major headache in the form of an opposition president unwilling to sign major reforms. The exact date of this crucial election will be announced next week.
I will announce the date of the elections at the earliest possible time, January 15th.
The election, which will take place somewhere in May, is already sparking fears of potential Russian meddling. According to the Polish Minister of Digital Affairs, these fears are more than warranted.
Poland is now at war with Russia in cyberspace. They've prepared a lot of nasty surprises for us this year. A special unit of the GRU, the Russian Army Intelligence, is to carry out disinformation and sabotage acts across Poland.
The Polish minister said on Tuesday that the country has a number of ways to defend itself against these acts of hybrid warfare.
We've secured a record amount of funds for cybersecurity. We have special cells dedicated to defending us from Russian sabotage, and I established a coordination centre for this specific purpose.
But election interference may also come from a less obvious direction. Elon Musk, the multi-billionaire owner of X, SpaceX and Tesla, is taking heat in the EU for using his social media platform as a tool for swaying voters.
10 years ago, if I had been told that the owner of one of the largest social networks in the world would support a new international reactionary movement and intervene directly in elections, including in Germany, who would have imagined it?
The French president alluded to the owner of X openly supporting the Alternative for Germany party, a far-right populist movement gaining popularity mostly due to its strong anti-migration stance.
Why is there such a negative reaction from some about AfD? They keep saying far-right, but the policies of AfD that I've read about don't sound extremist. Maybe I'm missing something.
Musk has recently made headlines by announcing an interview soon to be held on X with the AfD leader Alice Weidel. In 2018, she made the following statement about Muslim immigrants, which Elon Musk might have overlooked or chose to ignore.
Girls in headscarves, knife-wielding men on government benefits, and other good-for-nothing people will not secure our prosperity, economic growth and the social state.
According to Politico, Elon Musk could try and use his X platform to try and influence the Polish presidential election. Poland's anxiety over election interference also comes in the wake of reported Russian meddling with elections in Romania and Moldova. While the Polish government says it is ready to counter any acts of Russian meddling in the Polish presidential election, whether it is true or not, we will find out in May this year. From Warsaw, TVP World, Kazimierz Łysiek.
If Canada merged with the US, there would be no tariffs, said Donald Trump, suggesting that Canada would be better off if it became one of the American states. This coincides with his son's visit to Greenland, which Trump also would welcome as a part of the US. How serious is Donald Trump about expanding the US territory? Piotr Miszczuk is looking for the answer.
A larger but significantly less affluent and much less populous US neighbor, Canada, has been under heightened economic pressure since late November, when Donald Trump announced he would impose a 25% tariff on the country. Now that long-serving Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has tendered his resignation, reportedly over a government budgetary rift, Donald Trump took to online media platform Truth Social with a response.
Many people in Canada love being the 51st state. The United States can no longer suffer the massive trade deficits and subsidies that Canada needs to stay afloat. Justin Trudeau knew this and resigned. If Canada merged with the United States, there would be no tariffs.
According to experts, however, Donald Trump doesn't seem to be very serious about making Canada the 51st US state. For some, it seems to be merely a joke.
Well, it sounds like a joke, but it obviously highlights his campaign message about making America great again. And he's a marketer, so he knows that this is, even though it sounds absurd, we're going to talk about it, and it plays into his campaign message of making America great again.
But there's more to Donald Trump's territorial ambitions. Last month, he said the United States' ownership and control of Greenland was an absolute necessity for the purposes of global security and freedom. On Tuesday, his son visited the island, prompting the incoming US president to make further comments on social media.
Greenland is an incredible place, and the people will benefit tremendously if and when it becomes part of our nation. We will protect it and cherish it from a very vicious outside world. Make Greenland great again.
But Trump Jr.'s trip to Greenland is seen as one by a regular tourist.
No, we're not meeting any politicians here, so that's not on the schedule. We're just here as tourists.
We have got a new runway in the capital, Nuuk, and we want more American tourists, so he is very, very welcome. When it is Trump Sr. who says that he wants to make Greenland great again, then it is more serious.
Greenland might be of interest for Trump for one particular reason.
Greenland is a large territory with a lot of raw minerals. In fact, I just read it. I think 28 of the 34 raw minerals that are on the European Union's list. Greenland has them.
But the Danish government's stance is clear.
Greenland is for the Greenlandic people. It is a proud people, a language and culture that is their own. And as stated before, Greenland is not for sale.
Alongside Canada and Greenland, Donald Trump has also lobbed a threat that the US could retake the Panama Canal due to hefty fees that American ships pay for using the waterway. But expanding the US territory might not be his true objective.
He wants to appear as the tough guy. He wants to appear as almost the bully who can get his own way. That's how he built his business career. That's how he built his political career. And Donald Trump wants to give that appearance of being a bully because it actually covers up serious issues.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Donald Trump will assume office on January the 20th.
And we have the latest from the US. Donald Trump, speaking to reporters in Florida, stated, quote, "Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes, and people really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security." And that's not all, because Donald Trump has also given his remarks on the Panama Canal. And he said the Panama Canal was built for military. And responding to reporters' question about a probability of a military action in the region, he said, "I'm not going to commit to that now. It might be that you'll have to do something. Look, the Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China, and we gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China, and they've abused it. They've abused that gift." Now on to further news. So there are warnings that Russia's relocation of forces and military equipment from Syria to Libya could present fresh major challenges for Europe. Analysts say a significant build-up has been seen at Tobruk, potentially providing Moscow with a power base at the very heart of the Mediterranean, as John Todd now reports.
Russia's exodus from Syria continues. Thousands of troops and tons of military equipment used to prop up the former regime moved at scale. Much of this force is being relocated to Libya, potentially providing a major power base at the centre of the Mediterranean Sea.
It's very challenging for Europe because Russia becomes now in more control of the migration routes from Africa, but also energy supply.
Italy's Defence Minister Guido Crosetto has warned that the harbouring of Russian ships and submarines closer to the EU is cause for concern. Libya has been acting as a staging post for Russian operations for its Africa Corps and Wagner units. As Syrian bases are wound down, it's a role that will now play greater prominence, with consequences for local populations.
This consolidation of mercenary-type warfare continues, then this will only increase the chaos, and that chaos is in favor of the Russian policy.
The Syrian rebels' seizure of power was initially perceived as a humiliation for Moscow, but analysts warn that Russia is far from being out of the game and could view its exit from Syria as an opportunity.
Russia is always trying to rebrand and to reinvent itself, and it has been buried many times by Western analysts and by journalists, and it always remains somehow able to continue.
As the military shipments proceed, the questions are: where will Russia turn its gaze next, and who will this impact?
And now on to a unique find in the dungeons of the Vilnius Cathedral. A secret vault with funerary regalia of the rulers of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was discovered there. Yevgeny Rusakov reports from Vilnius.
I am standing right in the heart of Vilnius, near the Vilnius Cathedral. Not so long ago, there was discovered a secret vault with funerary marks of the rulers of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and Poland, which is truly a unique discovery.
It's a follow-up to the discovery that happened after the flood of the cathedral, when the crypt of the King of Poland and the Grand Duke of Lithuania, Alexander, and also of Elizabeth and Katerina were found. The remains in the crypt were also with the funerary marks of the crypt. They were hidden in 1939 at the beginning of the war, and their location was not known. They've been found. They are national symbols because they are symbols of both the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the Kingdom of Poland.
The discovered funerary marks of Lithuanian and Polish rulers are priceless historical treasures, symbols of the long-standing traditions, signs of Vilnius as the capital, and remarkable works of jewelry. Straight from Vilnius, Yevgeny Rusakov for TVP World.
Donald Trump's special envoy for Ukraine and Russia has decided not to visit Europe before the presidential inauguration. No new date for the trip has been set, prompting questions about the nature of this unexpected decision. Meanwhile, Volodymyr Zelensky has once again expressed his hopes of the new old US president helping to end the war swiftly. To talk about it and more, we're joined by Daniel Fried, former US ambassador to Poland. Good evening.
Dobry wieczór. Good evening.
Mr. Ambassador, what to make of Keith Kellogg's decision to abandon his plans to visit Europe in early January?
Well, a trip by a member of the incoming administration before that administration takes office was odd to begin with. So it's not surprising. I don't think anybody should be shocked that it was put off, because Keith Kellogg, General Kellogg, coming to Ukraine, to Poland before Donald Trump is president is certainly unusual, because he has no standing. He's a part of the incoming administration, but he has no government presence, no government position. So I wasn't shocked to hear this is put off. I would not read too much into it, except possibly Trump realizes that it is not so simple to make an end to Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. It's not going to be 24 hours, as he once said.
No, definitely not 24 hours. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated, Trump and I will come to an agreement and offer strong security guarantees together with Europe, and then we can talk to the Russians. Now, honestly speaking, what guarantees can Trump offer at the moment while Russians do not intend to hold the offensive in the country's east?
The first challenge of Ukraine's security is to help stabilize the line. That is, to help Ukraine and put sufficient pressure on Russia that its offensive slows down and hopefully stops. Donald Trump and his people have spoken about rapid diplomatic movement, basically to create an armistice line more or less along current lines, and then negotiate some provisional solution. Now, Ukraine's security will be absolutely critical for Ukraine, for Poland, for NATO, for the United States. A solution which leaves Ukraine vulnerable to future Russian aggression is no solution at all. It's a mere pause while Russia can regroup and continue its aggression at a later phase. So President Zelensky is absolutely right. The issue of Ukrainian security linked with any ceasefire is absolutely critical. There's been a lot of talk about that recently. The gold standard for European security is NATO membership. And Poland's argument for itself joining NATO in the 90s is the same as Ukrainians' argument now, except that the war that the Poles warned us about in the 90s is the war that Ukraine's actually got. A war of Russia trying to reclaim its empire. So the question is NATO ready to take in Ukraine? And if not, what other arrangements can be made that will provide for Ukraine's security so Russia can't simply resume its imperial war?
Now, as you said in the very beginning, Keith Kellogg's decision not to visit Europe before the inauguration of Donald Trump is not a big shock. But now let's talk about something shocking, straight from the US, because as Donald Trump is obviously still waiting for his big success in negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, he's looking for opportunities elsewhere. And I'm talking about Greenland and Panama, Canada as well. Let's now listen to the 47th US president.
Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time. You have approximately 45,000 people there. People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security.
Now, again, people really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it, to Greenland. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security. Now, how to interpret these words?
Trump enjoys saying provocative things to watch people scramble. He does that to obtain leverage, to put interlocutors on the defensive, and because he enjoys it. That said, making a claim against the territory of another country is appalling. The more so when it is a friendly country, a NATO member. The US and all of NATO has security concerns in the high north, and Greenland plays a role. But if Denmark has not done a good job with security, well, I haven't heard of that. I have heard no argument, and Trump did not even suggest that Denmark and Greenland have done a poor job cooperating with NATO and the United States on security against, let's say, Russian aggression. I don't know what is to be gained by alienating an ally, but Trump does enjoy throwing some mud into the game and watching people scramble. Denmark has stood with the United States in solidarity in some very tight places. And we should not throw away that friendship lightly. Moreover, I simply don't like, and I will not defend, an expression of national power through territorial acquisition. This is what 19th century European powers used to do, and it ended in catastrophe. The United States has stood for something different ever since Woodrow Wilson in his 14-point speech, not because we were idealists or we believed in charity, but because a better world, a rules-based world, is actually better for the United States. It is in our national interest that there be a rules-based world. And in that, we have enjoyed Polish support for many decades. For over 100 years, really, we've been working with Poland along that basis. And when the United States fell from our obligations, as we did in the 1930s, the result was bad. When we stood up to our obligations after 1945, the result was good, especially after 1989. So I'm not going to defend what Donald Trump said. I don't think it's defensible. I think it's unfortunate. And I hope that Trump will find a way to work with Denmark without trying to bully it and weaken NATO, which will only help Vladimir Putin.
Unfortunately so. I was about to ask you about the Panama Canal and Donald Trump hinting at the possibility of using the US Army there, but I think I already know your answer, having listened to your answer on the Greenland issue. Daniel Fried, former US ambassador to Poland, was our guest tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching, and stay with us for much more news and comments here on TVP World.